My grandfather was a little unusual compared to most of the people that entered the pearling industry, that he wasn't happy to be based out of Broome. He worked exclusively with the Bardi-Joey people for decades. There were no other people that really he employed.
He tried pearling, he tried trocasel, he tried oyster. He had all the group of Bardi people in Galen. Travel ride sort of Camden Harbour, Curry Bay, right through all along the area. Took them for months and months and months. And I was second skipper. The old fella had meat. In some places we only had bush tucker. There's no money to buy whatever we wanted. And there's no bull dust.
Dean comes into the story when the Curie Bay supply ship runs aground on the famous Montgomery Reef. Curie Bay, which is probably 400 kilometres north of Broome, entirely reliant for supplies and information of the outside world on these regular supply runs. The boat runs aground, it's gone. Now you've got a farm of 50 odd people stuck in the middle of the Kimberley with no ways of getting supplies in or out. So Dean puts his hand up and he manages to get the contract to supply Curie Bay, probably being one of the only white people in the surrounding area that actually had a boat and could do the job. So he starts supplying Curie Bay, and you can imagine he's their lifeline. So the Japanese technicians, the masters of the pearl farm, so to speak, I think became probably quickly quite fond of this old guy, and they showed him around and obviously didn't have the same sense of security in terms of not showing anybody the IP, the secrets of culturing pearls. And so Dean got a bit of an insight, and he was obviously having a bit of a look behind what the technicians were doing and thought, well, this doesn't look very hard. So he's thinking, well, hang on a second, if these guys can do this, why can't we? Dean, was obviously a fairly innovative guy, but at that stage getting a little bit old as well, and his eyesight wasn't great. He manages to convince one of his sons, his middle son, Lyndon Brown, to come up north and have a crack at culturing pearls. Let's have a go at this. For whatever reason, Lyndon did, and I don't know why. Maybe it was an opportunity to spend some time with his dad, and travelled north to start this whole quest with Dean. And they fished a few hundred shell, and then Dean dropped Lyndon on a beach in Cygnet Bay with a couple of the Bardi guys. Starting from nothing, he went and crafted his own tools from bits of tin that they found at the Broome dump and just had a go. It's a classic Australian battler story that it's 1 in a million. I mean, this guy doesn't stand a chance, but nor has he got anything to lose, and he's sitting on a beach in the middle of nowhere, no roads, no communication. His dad's just dumped him with a few hundred pearl shell and a couple of Aboriginal guys that he's only known for a few weeks, and said, have a crack. And he did, he got to work. Dean came back, off they went, and a year later they came back to check on what they'd done, and they harvested some of the shell, and lo and behold, some of them were actually producing pearls. It's only a year later, so there's a thin layer, but something's happening. And of course that to them would have been like the first guys that were panning for gold, and it's that eureka moment, right? They now realise that they can do it, and this is a huge moment. And this is where it starts getting interesting for the Australian industry, because that just blows it wide open. And when the rest of the country hears that Dean and Lyndon Brown, even the Japanese technicians at Curie Bay, couldn't believe it. In fact, refused to believe that the Browns had grown pearls at Cygnet Bay. So the rest of the country would have been just as astonished. And when you look back, that first wave of pioneering that new cultured pearling industry, Cygnet Bay is all over the newspapers. Quite quickly over the next sort of 10, 20 years, a lot of other players entered the industry and reinvested in Broome's pearling industry and set the scene for Broome's next boom, and that of course is the cultured pearling story.